Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Asian Business Owners. This is your host, Carmen, and today I'm joined by a new guest. On paper, his career looks like a succession of high intensity chapters, years in Southeast Asia, leadership roles in fast growing startups and unicorns, two agency built and acquired, scale ups, exits. Sounds pretty impressive, but that's not it. What makes my guest story interesting isn't just what he built, but also how many times he chose to leave, reset, and re-update what success meant to him. Over the years, he's lived through ambition, acceleration, burnout, fatherhood, and eventually a very conscious shift in how he allocates his time, energy, and attention. And lately, he revisited what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it. And in this episode, we'll be talking about how success changes shape with experience, the two faces of the best opportunities, and what really shifts when becoming a parent while being a founder. Hi, Cyril. Welcome.
Hello, Carmen. Thanks for having me.
What do you think of this intro?
I was like, whoa, wow. That's a lot of
Sounds like you?
pretty interesting word. And it does sounds like me. So you got that correct.
Yeah, cool. Okay, Cyril. So from what I just said, and when people look at your career, all the, buzzy words, but all of this is true, but, the startup
Yeah.
vocabulary and stuff like that. From the outside, Southeast Asia experience, growing startups, unicorns, successful exits. This is the example of what we can call a success story, right?
Mhm.
But when you look back at it today with your eyes of who you are today, what part of the story do you think people maybe misunderstand or get wrong?
Mm. So it's an interesting question. And I would say it depends who you're talking to and in which country you
Mm,
you are. When I speak with French people or I speak with like a more
mm,
expats and they don't have the same read on it. But I guess what usually comes back and where I think it's not entirely true, maybe threefold. I'll say first thing first is the relationship and the money with the
okay.
money. Where when you see these words and you say, "Oh, founder exits, big startups," and everybody just like think I'm now a multimillionaire, having
Mm,
a podcast in my yacht or things like that, which is not entirely true, unfortunately, or maybe for the best, I don't know.
mm,
So I would say that's the first thing, the most common misconceptions about
okay.
my story. The second thing would be the level of sacrifices it required to get there,
Yeah.
because when you have not experienced it, it's. I mean, I understand, right? It's very hard to grasp what it means, and I guess also the relation between energy and luck. I'm a strong believer in like if you put your entire energy into something, it will succeed to a certain point, but you
Yeah.
also need a little bit of luck, being at the right place, the good timing, the good opportunity, meeting the right people. And these two connects. The more energy you put in it, the more luck you have, the more energy you have. And it's
Mm,
like an interesting circle
mm.
that people fail usually to see, I think.
Yeah, it seems like if you check the boxes of what they call success, they think, oh, this guy makes a lot of money. And if they are not themselves capable of doing so and putting all this energy, I think it's comforting for them to call this luck because then it's, oh,
Mm,
yeah, but he's just lucky,
correct.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a bit of that, definitely.
And now if we go back in time, so
Hmm.
before moving to Southeast Asia,
Hmm.
before founding agencies, um, you were working in France in
Yeah,
corporate
yes.
life. What was your ambition at that time? What did you want to achieve?
Yeah, so back in time, I started with one actually big corporate, a telco company in France. So the big machine, right? Successful and big machine. Um, I guess my ambition came from my frustration. I
Okay.
realized, in these kind of companies, you have very smart people, don't get me wrong, but it's very coded. Like you have to wait a certain amount of time. It's very hard to climb the ladder. And I was very
Mm.
frustrated because there was very talented young people and, could make things a little bit different and it was slow and everything. And that's how my ambition kind of kicked in. I was like, no, I want to be in charge. Why not? I think I could also do a good job and wanted to kind of prove that to myself. Huh? I was like, I don't know, 23, 24 years old.
Mm.
So that's how it starts to come in.
Yeah.
And I also quickly realized that I was not the best operator, the best doer. There was like tons of people more gifted than me and a lot of different things. And I started to see where my strength lied was more like into, uh, getting people around the project and federating and kind of being the bit of the each guy, or maybe not the each guy,
Leading
but
the.
yeah, and the disrupting element, be like, oh, why don't we do that this way, or we
Mm.
try something new, and I kind of started to see, hey, maybe this is my superpower. I never
Mm.
be, the guy who will do the best presentations and PowerPoint and stuff, or the best Excel guy or whatever. But that's how I see and started to see where I wanted to go. So I also come from a entrepreneurial family, so I guess it kind of runs into my vein. And so I
Mm.
always wanted, when I was younger, being my own boss, kind of proving the world or myself I could do it, and earn a lot of money. Just kind of stamping the fact that it
Yeah.
works, and that's how I quickly realized corporate was not for me. I could
Yeah.
achieve that, but maybe in 20 years, and that was just too long to wait for.
Yeah. And it is pretty limited of,
Correct.
yeah, what you can do. So at 26,
Yeah.
you had a job opportunity in Malaysia and you decided to move there without knowing this country at all. You'd never been there before. So I know
No.
this feeling because when I arrived in Hong Kong, it was totally new to me and I just booked my flight and, thought, yeah, let's see.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so how was it when you arrived there in
yeah.
Malaysia?
So yeah, you're correct. I've never been to Malaysia before. I travel a little bit to Southeast Asia, but never to Malaysia. And we're speaking Malaysia 10, 15 years
Mm.
ago, which has already evolved
Yeah.
a lot since then.
Yeah.
But I kind of remember that feeling when I arrived from the airport, because it happened pretty fast. Like in three months, with my wife, we left Paris, and then we were up in Kuala Lumpur, and everything was different. It
Mm.
is nothing like France.
Yeah.
The weather, the people, the rhythm, the shops, the languages, the culture, the religion. It's like
Yeah.
discovery of a new world. Uh, but we were young, no kids, so it was the adventure. And what strikes me quite a lot was the work environment, and the pace, because I've always worked in a French companies, so very French way of doing things, French
Mm.
mentality, and then all of a sudden I arrive in this startup from an ex-rocket internet, very international. And then the pace, when it started, it was like I was not ready for it,
Yeah.
because
What was the
in
pace?
it was like, I remember kind of like I arrived on my first day, did a bit of the onboarding, but was like half an hour. And then boom, sharp, had a meeting with the CEO, and he was like, okay, can you work on the digital marketing plan for the year? And I was like, yeah, of course. I mean, that's my function, right? It's
Hmm.
like, yeah, can you send it to me by tonight? And I was like,
Wow.
wow, okay. By tonight, you mean like today, tonight of today? Which tonight,
Tonight's of today?
because, in France would be like, can you work on the digital marketing plan? Yeah, we need to get it right in a month. And then we'll see each other
Yeah.
15 times and iterate. And so many people would be in the loop. And that's how I realized, okay, maybe I arrived in an environment I really don't
Mm.
know.
Mm. You were
And
joining as head of marketing there?
yeah. Correct.
Okay.
There was a startup that just raised 3 millions, and they wanted to expand regionally, and
Okay.
they needed someone new at this function. So that's how I came in. And the second, I guess, fun fact is within the same week, right? So I do my things and everything, and arrive the weekend. So I was like, okay, nice,
Yeah.
just take a break and explore a bit Kuala Lumpur because I was just working all along. Uh,
After
and then,
having worked on 5 different strategy in 5 days,
correct.
you can
Uh,
rest.
and then I remember receiving a phone call from my boss, and he was like, "Hey, Cyril, did you check your WhatsApp and your email?" And it was like Saturday, 11 a.m. I was like, no, not really.
Mm,
And it was like, yeah, please, you need to be, I need to be able to join you anytime. This is super urgent and everything. I was like, okay, this is a
wow.
whole new world.
Mhm.
Again, I was 26 at that time. And I realized, okay, now I need to to embrace that new philosophy of working and see how it goes because it was
Mm.
completely different from France.
And then how did it go? Did it go well, or what happened then? How long did you end up working in this company?
Yeah,
Because
so it
you left everything behind. You really started over to come there, right?
correct. It was a full restart. It's not, it ended pretty quickly because 6 months after I joined that company, they missed their Series B, and
Mm.
so they laid everybody in a day. Same style. You have to get the digital marketing plan in by tonight. Everybody was out by tonight.
Wow. Okay.
So this was also a shocker. I was in Japan during my 3 days break, and my best friend, who I at the time had joined the company to work with me, and he called
Mm.
me. He's like, "Hey, Cyril, we don't have a job anymore." I'm like, "What do you mean we don't have a job?" It is like we have to, it's done. You have to bring the computer and goodbye. And I was like,
So
same
after
in France.
6 months, so after
Yeah,
6 months, you left France with your wife, and
yeah,
you two settled in a completely different country, continent, where everything was new.
yeah.
And after 6 months, where you just start to be
Get
comfortable,
grasp.
yeah, then you're being laid off.
Correct. And it was like, full off. I was like, what do we do, right? Do we just
Mm,
go back to France? Because obviously I was not, looking for other jobs, or I
yeah.
was just focused on mine, right? And then that's where I realized how Malaysia was an incredible country, and how things were different at the time. Because I guess what happened there was a real Kickstarter for my career, because I
Okay.
was, as I said, 26, 27 when it happened. And within 10 days after the word was out that this company shut down, I received like, I don't know, maybe 10 invitation to be interviewed for CMO position for pretty big companies. And I was like, whoa, either I'm the god of
Mm,
marketing, which I doubt, or there is really something happening there, and there is a need. And I was like, where does that come from?
mm,
So it was a shocker, but I guess within 3 weeks, I already found another job, and I'm like, okay, that's definitely a different environment,
mm,
space.
mm,
There is a
mm.
different momentum altogether in this country.
And after that, so did you find another job after that, or when is the moment that you decided to at some point start your own business?
Mm. So yeah, I first got a job because my wife wasn't even working, because we literally
Yeah.
just set up. We're like, I don't even have a visa anymore, so I'll get
Oh
expelled at
yeah,
some
right.
point. So yeah, I took that job. Was for a company called K-Fit and Fave. Was like really the big company, the big startup. Again, startup as we described it. It's like 10 years ago, big open spaces, the crazy,
Mm,
a lot of money. They were backed by Sequoia at the time. They were the only one in Malaysia being backed by Sequoia. So it was the startup everybody was looking at, right? Everybody wanted to
okay.
get there. again, I got the interviews done, and maybe we can circle back to that later. But I ended up joining this company as a
Okay.
CMO. And within all these interviews, that's kind of what triggered the ideas that there was a problem in the digital marketing space. Because how and why would all these huge company would be looking for kind of my profile? Yeah, I had a
Mm,
bit of background, but I was not, again, coming from Google or Facebook or these, major US corporates. So I realized that there was a gap and there is a lack of talents, urgent needs of
mm,
knowledge. And that's kind
mm,
of what started to trigger the idea. And when I was during my time in this company, because I only stayed, I think like 8 months or 9 months as a CMO. And during these 9 months, I was always getting job offers or consulting
mm,
offers, but
mm.
like literally every week. And I was like, whoa,
What does that mean? Yeah.
how can that happen? Right. And that's where I decided, I'm like, okay, if there's so many companies that need these services, there's definitely a business there. Plus,
Mm,
during my year and a half so far in Malaysia, I worked with a lot of agencies,
mm.
and I was like so frustrated as a customer. I was like, yeah, the level is shitty, the service is shitty. I might as well
Mm,
do it myself, right? And that's kind of how
okay.
the things came together, right? I was like, everybody wants to work with me apparently, and the agencies are really, really not at the level they should
Okay.
be. So let's try it out.
Mm,
And that's how it
yeah.
started.
Okay. So you identified a gap in the market, actually.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so you told me that this agency took off pretty quickly. So you had 10 people in 1 year, the first year,
Yes,
turnover
correct.
of a bit less than 500,000 US dollars.
Mhm.
So how did you scale so fast? Because I guess the economic maybe landscape at the time was like benefited you because it seems that it was growing a lot, and also as you identified that gap in the market, maybe it helped your company grow faster. But was there anything else? Because it's pretty impressive in 1 year what you achieved.
Yeah, so it was my first entrepreneurial
Yeah,
experience,
yeah.
and in Malaysia, which is,
Mm,
we speak often in France of how complicated it could be to be an entrepreneur, very administrative and everything. In Malaysia, it could be pretty fast on some aspect and pretty unsettling in some others. Like opening a business is fairly easy. But as an expat, it's fairly complicated because you don't get a
oh
visa
yeah.
from your own. So there is a lot of admin stuff. But as to your question, which was, you know how did we scale that fast? I guess that's where the energy slash luck I was mentioning before kicked in. uh,
Okay.
why luck is because when I joined the first company, Glasses Online, in Malaysia, I had no idea who they really were, what the name, were they connected and everything. And it happened to be a company everybody was looking at.
Mm,
So when you had that credentials, already you had good network. Everybody who were in the company found very good jobs everywhere, and that's how I started to get my first customer from my previous teams and team members and
okay.
colleagues. And then again, when you were a CMO of Fave at that time, it's like whatever you say on digital marketing is true somehow,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
which I was not always true though. That was really easy for me to open some doors when you had those two credentials behind you. And
Mm,
also, I guess the energy of just going everywhere and being relentless about, business and going extremely fast and being very focused on like, okay, this is exactly what we're going to do. This is exactly how we're going to do it. What, how are we going to operate it compared to the other agencies, and where I think, as a customer, now I
mm,
could do what service I would like to have, and that's what I'm going to provide. So it's a combination of like product market fit, good timing, good credentials, and a lot of energy put it in.
mm,
And Malaysia is an amazing country where, as I mentioned before, the pace and the decision making process are very short. very eager to try. They always want to go,
Yeah.
one step further, which is double-edged sword as an agency because it's easy to get in, but you can also get kicked out pretty easily. So you have to be good at
Mm.
what you do.
Did you have anyone to help you make all these decisions? Because, well, you said putting the energy, you had the credibility, so you were like an expert in this domain. But did you have any co-founder, or not co-founder, but or someone close to you that would advise you on decisions?
Yeah. So what I believe, my personal belief is already your wife is by default somehow your co-founder, whether she wants it
Okay.
or not. So she would be part of that decision-making process
Okay.
and support and everything. And the first agency I created was with my best friend that, came in from France and was laid off
Oh,
with
yeah,
me,
yeah.
then came to my second company as well. And then I was like, oh, why don't we do it together? And I really believe it for agencies and people who are maybe, looking at, hey, I want to do an agency business, is having these two components, like a business and account servicing. I'm not even speaking about the basics of knowing what you're doing, right? Of course, or
Mm,
just don't do it. But that was what allowed us to really scale fast, is I could really take care of the business aspect of things and the growing, structuring the companies when he could be running the account management departments. So really
okay.
like taking care of the clients correctly. It's not just signing and be like, oh, okay, good words and everything, and then you deliver shit. Then you
Mm,
become one of the agencies I hated at the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
And that duo worked very well. And that gave
Mm,
us the momentum because I knew the moment I would sell and strategize or conceptualize something, it would be delivered the way I wanted. And
okay.
so it was very reassuring for
Yeah.
me to get there.
You ended up growing and scaling even more, and then what happened next?
Yeah. So we grew pretty fast. Yeah, around 500K the first year. Uh, we had 10 people, and two things happened simultaneously. I guess the first thing is I realized I'm not an admin guy.
Okay.
And the burden of all setting up all the legalities, hiring and everything. If you want to hire expat in a company where you are an expat yourself, yeah,
Mm,
this was taking a toll on me at some point. So I guess that was the first point, and the second point was we had that we took a big mission for a very big company, very large, called Lelang.my, which was kind of the eBay of Malaysia. The kind of dinosaur that was like
mm.
dominating the internet space for 20 years. They were starting to slow down the activities because Lazada came into the markets. So rocket internet again and was very aggressive.
Lazada,
Um,
for those who don't know this company.
so Lazada is this big marketplace,
Yeah.
basically now is owned by Alibaba, and that runs like heavy discounted
Hmm.
product all over Southeast Asia. So they hit it hard on the local businesses that were,
Yeah.
they didn't have the money power to compete. So that's why I came entangled with Lelong.my, and I was doing fractional CMO plus agencies for them. And at some point, it became obvious for both of us that there was something there to play, and that's how we got hired. So the exit
Acquired,
was, yeah, that means they got to, they just basically
absorb
acquired the
your.
company,
Yeah.
absorb, yeah, correct, to run their businesses. And we were keeping a little bit of agencies work on the side because it worked pretty nicely with the business model they had. But I basically left over to become CMO of Lelang. So I came back from entrepreneurship to
Mm.
kind of
Okay.
intrapreneurship within this
Mm.
bigger structure.
Yeah, because
So
they
so that's
acquired the company, and then became CMO of the company who
the whole,
acquired.
yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, the
Okay.
holding. So that's how the first kind of exit happened, all right?
So before moving on to what happened after that, because we know that you founded two
Yeah,
agencies,
correct.
let's do a very quick this or that. So
Okay.
it's super easy. You don't have to think too much. I just give you two words and you just pick one, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Try me.
No tricky questions. Okay. So startups or big techs?
Startups.
Yeah, startup. Steady growth or growth peak?
Steady growth.
Recognition or relief?
Ha, tough
I
one.
know this. I know. I knew it. I knew.
This one is a tough one. I think I would have answered differently before. So, but I would say relief,
Okay. Being needed or being free?
being free,
Being respected or trusted?
trusted.
And the last one, expat life or local life?
Hmm. This one also is a question I ask myself every day. But again, as of today, I'd say local life.
Yeah. Okay. See,
Hmm.
you did good. But I knew the tricky ones that you would be like, I don't know.
It's
But
still
you,
that little
yeah.
bit of ego stuck there.
Mm. Okay, cool. That was a nice one. So you were the CMO of this
Mm,
Leilong company who acquired your agency. And then after that, you decided to, again, do something different. It seems like you like
correct.
to take a step aside and just assess the situation and be like, okay, I achieved that, but maybe now I need something else. It's like you are not afraid of transitions. Seems
Mm.
like your journey is full of different transitions from like career, countries, all of this. So what was in your mind after that?
Yeah, the main triggers was like I stayed for 2 years in Lelong. So in Southeast Asia is a fairly long time again compared to France. We'll
Mm,
be like 2 years is the basics you need to stay in a company. Kind of this old-fashioned
yeah,
mentality.
yeah.
Where in Southeast Asia you could be jumping. It's not seen as a failure. Almost on the contrary. Um, but I did kind of everything I could do. And then at that point, there was discussion was like, do I want to be even more involved in that company and kind of project myself into it for a longer period of time? And I realized that was not me.
Mm,
Simple fact, which is I would have changed so many things in the way this company would operate. And I believe is if you want to change everything, maybe you are the one to be changed, and that you're not
oh
the right
yeah,
one to
yeah.
for this company, right? And again, I also work with opportunities. And at that time, I was always in discussion with another founder who had founded a MarTech company. I used them as a client, and they almost acquired us before. And we were, catching up every now and then.
Mm,
And this guy approached me and be like, okay, now is a good momentum for us. We just raised a couple millions, so I would need like kind of your eyes and to grow. And he offered me the VP of growth position, and that was regional.
oh wow. Okay.
Lelong was Glasses was regional but B2C. Lelong was local B2C, and this was a regional B2B in the tech space.
Mm.
So I get bored very easily, and I am very curious, and I like challenges. And I was like, oh, a bit of a new space for me. So yeah, let's give it a try. And that's how
Spoiler
I
alert,
yeah,
you didn't stay
yeah.
long.
No, this time was my shortest stay per se,
How long?
uh, 2 weeks.
Wow.
Um, but that's not. I mean, there is another side of that story,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how the second agency's idea came into play. So
Okay.
I joined that company, kind of did the normal audit and everything, and spoke with as many people as I could. And then I realized it was not for me. So, I'm not the one that be like, when I know these things, I just need to move on to something else. No need to try until eventually I'll be like, no. And then
But
when
how did you know it wasn't for you?
I guess the mentality, the way things were operated, it was very very far from how I run things in a company, and I just didn't see
Like
myself being
what was the how different was it from what you were doing before?
okay. I would take a little bit of a shortcut there, but there was a lot more senior people, senior expat people. It was a bit of a crab basket,
Mm.
where it's or viper nests, and then I was like, I don't know if I want to be in that environment. It's like there's a lot of potentials, but that's not my vibe. That's not how I like to operate.
Mm.
As I say, it's more like trusted than respected, right? So I was respected, but the trust over there, I don't know, something
Yeah.
was off. But
Okay.
then I also realized the potential of building a business together, because there were CRM MarTech company well implanted in 7 different countries across Southeast Asia. They had a customer base, but they were only servicing that CRM portion with as a SaaS.
Mm.
And I knew, and I know how to operate agency services, and I know that I have the ability to deliver that, and I don't want to do the admin and setting up part
Yeah,
which
yeah,
they've
yeah, yeah.
already done. So it kind of like be, hey, why don't we try that out? And we join forces there. And that's how they became my co-founder slash more investor. So that's how I started Elixus, the second
Mm. Okay.
agency.
So
Sorry.
actually, you really a very important point here is that I'm a founder as well, and at the end of the day, when you are a founder, there are many difficulties being a founder, but you do it for a reason. But one of the things that is super valuable to me is to be able to choose who you work with. Like for my agency, I have some clients and I stopped working with some clients. Sometimes it's just takes up it drains your energy and you're like, no way. I prefer to cut this part of income and I will find someone else. But
Mm, definitely.
you're not a founder to end up working with people you don't want to. Otherwise, it's just back to corporate life to me. Mm, so I think this is really interesting that you felt like, there's something off here. It's not going to end well. So I prefer to see it, not to just close the door and walk away, but rather come up with another idea to kind of go around this roadblock. So
Yes.
actually, you started the agency, and as you said, that company became your big investor, and that's how you overcame this challenge. Let's say,
Yeah,
yeah.
entirely. And I would add to that is also, I realized pretty early that I need to operate things my way, for me to make it work.
Mm,
And if you start to put like here, no constraints everywhere, again, I'm not going to be your best guy. I'm
mm,
not going to be. There will be tons of other more talented people to do it. But when I can operate it my way, and as you said, being could be a lot of different things, like from choosing processes or choosing people or clients or how all these imbricates. I guess that's where my strength lies. So I need that freedom of action and full
mm,
control over the from A to Z, um,
mm.
to, to get there, especially in a service business. I
Yeah.
believe, which could be different from a product or tech perspective. Either I do it my way or I don't do it. Here, I'm not going to do it my way. It's not my company. So why don't we do something together, and I just run it the way I see fit.
Mm. Okay. So you embarked on this new project, founders project. I think how long did you operate in this company? A year and a half or so? Couple of years?
So for Elixus, from the time I founded it to the time I exited it was like 2.5 years.
Okay. So why did you? How did it go? Did you scale the company? And then why did you end up exiting it?
Mm. So I guess the gamble we took paid off pretty fast, because again they had the infrastructure, they had a lot of things already in place. So it was much easier for me to just focus on business development and operate it. And funny thing is, this company, uh, they had quite a few people from my first company. They hired quite a few people from my first company that I already worked with in the past, and they
Mm,
knew me, right? So it was very easy to get that core team in place, which I find when you're an agency is the hardest things to put together first. Your core team, to scale then later on, but to have that stability. So we grew the company to almost 3 million ARR by the time I exited it. We're very profitable, and we were operating in 6 countries, and we at the peak we had almost 60 people working with us.
mm,
But this
wow.
was like, if I look back at it, it's almost like a tsunami wave hitting me, right? Because at that time, I just took that new job, but then created this company. Then I was becoming a father for the first time.
Mm,
And 6 months later, COVID hits,
wow.
and hit it hard. So there was like a lot of obstacles
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and a
yeah.
lot of things to deal with at the same time. I don't like to put it this way because, but just business wise, COVID benefited us as a digital marketing agencies because all businesses had no choice but to turn to digital. That's how
Yeah.
everything like grew pretty fast there.
Mm. Just one quick question, but
Mhm.
so as a marketing agency, did you have like one specific area that was more successful than others, like gaining more revenue?
Yeah, so the bread maker was performance marketing. So we were doing media buying across all different channels, but
Okay.
the subtle point was, we were not only doing the media buying, but also the entire creative for the campaign, and we were doing the creatives for free.
Mm, okay.
And that's how we undercutted everybody, because my starting point was like, okay, you can optimize a campaign, the architecture of a marketing campaign in Facebook and Google as much as you want. But if at the end, what the people are seeing is the ad, and if the ad the client gives you is full of shit, it's not going to
Yeah.
convert, even if you are a
Yeah.
very good digital marketer. So it's like, instead of trying to get an additional 500 USD so we could do a bit of banners and A/B test, I was like, let us do and run all our A/B testing on creative, on wording, on everything for free. We do it. What this would result in is we would exploding their performance, so they would
Mm,
pour in much more budget into the campaign. And all of a sudden, the 500 USD I would have gained by trying to make them purchase my design services,
mm,
I would earn 2K more just in fees, in performance marketing
mm,
fees. So that's how we
mm,
penetrated the market really. Plus, we also had, so this other group who had MarTech, SaaS, so we could branch into CRM very easily. There was a lot of synergies. And then we had also like social media management, which was back in time very tied into media buying and post boosting and
yeah.
everything. I mean,
Yeah.
again, it's 8 years ago now, so
Mm.
the landscape has
Has
changed, but
changed.
it's still turning towards creative now, where the
Mm.
algorithm is optimizing for you. So anyway,
Yeah.
side
Yeah.
note.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of our focus and
Okay.
specialty there.
And I have one more quick question. I was listening to other podcasts lately about like founder stories, and at some point someone was saying that it was difficult for them to handle growth. It grew so fast and so much that it was difficult for them to keep up the pace and also like from a mental health standpoint.
Mm.
So was it something difficult for you at some point to handle that? Maybe not.
100%. No, but I'm thinking of how to answer that question, because it's kind of like 100% of the time was hard, in a
Okay.
sense that, what happened is my core job really evolved pretty fast, because like within, I don't remember exactly, but maybe within 6 months, we were already 20 people. My
Mm,
job moved from, doing, looking into a position or doing account management or doing things like that to operating the growth actually.
mm,
But that was extremely tiring because you also need to deal with human beings at the end of the day.
yeah.
It was during COVID. But the most difficult part for me was to balance out the discovery of fatherhood for me and being a successful entrepreneur. And
Mm,
maybe people are, some people are doing that very successfully. But for me, it was a bit of like, two side completely
yeah.
different. And I had a really hard time reconciling both of them without getting completely, mind fucked.
Mental.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm,
But again, in that way, COVID, because we're working from home, I realized that if there wasn't that period of time, I would not have seen my firstborn grow.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
had a
yeah, yeah.
discussion at that time where someone's be like, okay, how do you be remembered of when you die, right? And I was like, no way I want all my employee to be like, wow, he was a great manager, he's a successful entrepreneur, right? I want to be remembered as a great dad instead. And that's kind
Mm,
of the shift started to happen in my mind
okay.
as well.
I guess, yeah, with COVID, we we all got thinking about our lives, and I remember I was in France at the time, and I was in corporate as well,
Mm,
and I was working day and night because the company was like, "Oh, actually, you're in lockdown, you're stuck at
mm.
home." So we ended up working even more because we had nothing else to do, and the
Correct.
work life balance or whatever bullshit
Mm.
never didn't
Non-existent at that
exist.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So and actually this is when you start thinking about what's your value and what you do and how you allocate your time, and this is also for me was the start of a very slowly but surely road to burnout
Mm.
that really exploded like then years after, but it's really when it started because I
Yeah.
was like always on. And I guess also for you, if you are working but also feeling guilty not
Yeah.
to spend time with your kids, it adds up even more. So then at the time, you also told me that the guy, the manager or the co-founder, if we can
Mm.
say, of the
Mm.
bigger company, went downhill. That's the least we can say.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't stick in this situation, like COVID in Malaysia, lockdown, working so hard with this guy who was a bit of a problem at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Let's
So
just say toxic for me. Yeah.
yeah, toxic. What happened after that? Because it was you couldn't stay in this situation, right?
Yeah. So we had a very clear path. I mean, that's the point where also with my wife, we decided we wanted to go back to Europe. That was about 6 years in Malaysia. The plan was actually to open Europe now that we already had offices in London, some clients in Paris, but I was like, hey, now we have the apparatus and the machine and the knowledge from Southeast Asia. If we can get clients from Europe, that would be perfect. But as you said, there was all the rest, right? The
Mm,
years of grinding, the pressure as well, because when you start to grow, we had at some point to decrease, close down a country, and the guilt of like when I'm not working, I feel, and I'm with my child, I feel guilty because I know I should take care of my company, and when I'm working on my company, I'm like
mm,
feel guilty. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I need to take care of my kid, right? Plus the yeah, let's just say we had different views, opinions, and ways of life between this guy and myself. So it became quite clear that for me it was the time to exit before either I completely lost my shit or it turned,
collapses. Yeah.
yeah, it collapses, right? That's how I made the decision to sold my shares to
Mm,
the main group and do all the proper handover because I didn't want just to vanish and let all my people that, we grew very
yeah.
close all together through these hard times,
Yeah.
adventures and
Yeah.
everything. And then after I was like, okay, I'm done on that side. Now I
Yeah.
also want to spend time with my kids, right?
Yeah. Last
Period.
time
Period.
you told me I chose to be a father rather than
Correct.
an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean we can't do both, but maybe there are times where it's always the same thing. Also, especially with women, it's like, oh, do you want to be a mother or do you want to have a career? And I think we can have it all, but maybe not all at the same time. So there are times you have more time to, spend with your kids, and then or you just shift or shuffle things around to make it work. But definitely the balance was not ideal. You had to remove
Correct.
something.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you can't be both at the same time at all. I'm just saying I can't. The way I see things, the kind of father I want to be, I haven't found the solution to be growing a startups like crazy and being the father I want to be at the same time. And if I
Mm.
had to make a
Mm.
choice, that would be and will always be my kids.
I think we should hear that more, especially from men, fathers.
Yeah.
So you moved in a house, not in Paris, so really a
No.
different life, family life, and I guess from an identity standpoint, that must have been hard because you've had spent many years in Malaysia where things were moving very fast. And suddenly you were in France in this house with not so many people around compared to, Southeast
Yeah.
Asian cities,
That's the least you can
buzzing
say.
everywhere. So you ended up there, and by choice, I mean. But how did you apprehend this big, big, big transition back to
Mm.
France with your two kids after everything that has happened?
It was I guess when I look back at it, it was a very hard time for me, right? I was completely burned out. I arrived in this, big house that I chose. Don't get me wrong,
Mm.
in a very remote environment. I also realized, like how Malaysia, in Southeast Asia, it's fairly easy, at least as an expat, to get things done for you. All of a sudden, I realized I had to do a lot by myself in France, and I was clueless. I was not the successful entrepreneur. The digital marketing skills are not very handy when it comes to fixing a pipe or something.
Mm.
Plus the two kids and everything. So I deliberately took a 6 month break just to
Okay.
settle down, just to adjust, to cool down a little bit from everything that has happened. Take time to even do a grieving of this
Yeah,
adventure,
yeah,
because
yeah.
in other conditions, I mean, it's easy to redo the match, but in other condition, it could have been something extremely big and extremely successful. Uh, so a little bit of, do I consider this a success or a failure? Now,
Mm.
what do I want to do with my life? It was an interesting, interesting time.
Yeah, I imagine. Tough. But in hindsight, it benefited you to move
Oh,
on
it's
to what
just the
was
best
next.
decision I've made.
Because today
Yeah,
you're wearing different hats. You work on different levels, three different levels. You work as an interim executive for
hmm,
transition and restructuring of companies. You also advise executives with an approach that mixes mentorship, coaching, and consultancy. And you're
correct.
also a business facilitator especially for startup developing in Southeast Asia. Here it
Yeah.
is again. What has fundamental, wow. What has different,
Go
fundamentally,
ahead.
what is different in your relationship to work now? What would you absolutely refuse to do, even if the opportunity was attractive or very well paid?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, and I'm gonna try not to go in a full funnel of words and monologue, but mm, a lot has changed in my relationship to work, because after this 6 months break, I took a job in a big startup in France, HR consultancy and hiring company. and I stayed there for almost 2 years. But it was a big, for me, it was a big, very difficult from being back to, kind of having your own company, running it the way you see fit in Southeast Asia, to being again an employee in France. So I was
Mm.
CRO, then a managing director of that company, but still it was not mine. But it was a very good cool down period where I learned a couple of things. Can I replicate what I've done? Is there patterns? Right? I'm a big fan of patterns, and
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to, earn a good life and everything. So, okay, now the boxes are ticked. So what I want to do with that? And I had the
Yeah.
chance or the opportunity to work with, like, I don't know, 100 of different companies of being my clients, or me myself being in like 10 different companies at a fairly young age. So I've
Mm.
seen a lot of things, a lot of ways of operating, different culture, different, it's kind of a condensed package of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do I put all of this together, and can I make something that is replicable success, right? If you follow those patterns, I mean, you can't, it's not, you can be rich and it's going to be a whole beautiful world, but at least you're not making mistakes I've made before, or things that can be avoided. So I was kind of thinking, yeah, how do I use the best of everything I've learned? And now what I really wanted to see is like, did I get lucky and get the right timing and everything, or can I replicate these kind of successes? That's where I stayed 2 years in that company in France, because this company was experiencing down growth,
Hmm.
downfall. So it was a
Okay.
restructuring type of moments, which was something I was not very used to. And I also realized I had worked on a lot of different type of scope, right? From digital marketing to then CRO to founder. So then you get into
Mm.
HR and finance by default.
Mm.
I was
Yeah.
always the first sales guy of my own company. So I had the opportunity to touch a lot of things and see the implication and the implications of all these different departments. That's how, after again 2 years in that French company, I realized I'm not sure I'm super fitted to be an employee, because again, I like to
Mm.
run things the way I see, and that's where I'm at my best potential as well. And that's how I decided to move into, yeah, wearing a little bit different hats, but with always in mind of the ideas of, I don't want to become an entrepreneur again myself now, because I value time over money. Not that you have,
Okay.
again, to make a choice between them all the time, but twos are compatible, but there is a limit and everybody has his own,
Yeah. Yeah.
being in time and in money wise.
Mm.
But I wanted to bring and attach myself to companies that have a project I really believed in, and when I can add a lot of values because of those experience I described before. So that's kind of where I take these interim CEO positions. And that's also correlated to, yeah, let's call it sparring partner for
Mm.
founders, because then again, I would have loved to have that back in my time, because when you are head down and everything, and you just, it's very hard, to step back and see things differently, and or just someone who can play just a little bit of mirroring as well. As you said, I always love Southeast Asia. I always like being an entrepreneur somehow, and that's why now
Mm.
I'm working with this company called Octopus Community, to branch them out in Southeast Asia.
So after everything, all these transitions, how do you define success now compared to 10 years ago?
Time versus money.
Okay.
I would have defined, and I would have looked people who have made very successful exits as, okay, that means success. And now I value much more balance. Again, I'm not saying I'm not looking after money, right? That would be a lie. But it's not what I'm trying to achieve. Like, I'm not trying to get richer and
Yeah.
richer and richer at all costs. So it's
Okay.
definitely the time I have. And
Okay.
now I have very strict rules for myself that, 6:30, end of the
Yeah.
day, no matter what. And I'll bring my
Yeah.
kid to school, and I can be as efficient as I used to be. But
Okay.
that's what I define as success today. Doing what you like, getting paid for it, but having the time just to live a life. And for me, being a father is crucial.
Mm. And now this brings us to the last and the signature question of the podcast. So,
Okay.
throughout your experience as a founder, what lessons have you learned that you would like to share with fellow business owners?
Oh wow, you keep the big one for the end.
Yeah, I like this one because then I can compare the answers from one
Yeah.
founder to another.
Okay. So maybe just give me a five
I
second
give
to
you
wrap
time.
my head.
Mhm.
Yeah, to wrap my head around this one. I think I can start with a quote that has always been with me during all, and even with me in my career now, and how I apprehend things. But it's a quote from Marcus Aurelius, and it says, "The impediment of action advances action. What stands is the way becomes the way," which is a Stoic philosophy, and to say you have to look for the problems and to embrace the obstacles you are, because that's what shapes the next steps.
Mm,
And there is also a book called "The Obstacle is the Way," which I find very inspiring. And you need to like problems and obstacle if you
yeah,
want to be a business owner, and you need to
yeah.
thrive in it, right? It's like, if because you're gonna have shit that comes to your face all day long, all year long, that you're not expecting, and if you're not enjoying the problem of fixing those things, I would say that's already a wrong position for everyone.
Mm, mm,
And then I guess maybe 4 or 5 different points that I try to remind myself. The problem of ego, and never
mm,
forget that you will be the limitation of your company at some point. So know yourself enough to know when to hand over the things, and not being, blindsided by, I'm the founder, I want to do everything." This brings me to my second one, which I say, surround yourself with the right people for you. In Elixus, I always had a very clear way to hire people. If I had a very extremely talented people, but I could see the fit would not be there, and I have, let's say, an average or average good, I would always be for someone where the fit is there for the people
mm,
before their skills, because then it's also our job to train, to make people progress and give an environment. Uh, I would also say you have to be a little bit obsessed with your business, and that's why I had so hard time being parent. And but if you don't think about your business day and night, and being like obsessed with,
mm.
oh, I have these things and I want to fix it and I want to do better, and I think that's going to be harder for
Yeah,
you to be
yeah, yeah.
successful. And I would say the last two would be the kind of the speed. Make sure you keep the momentum going all the time. So speed, iterate, fail. The obstacle is
Mm,
the way again, and turn yourself and your company into learning machines, because we're all going to make mistakes, founders or employees, whatever, right? But our ability to learn from that and never reproduce it, especially in services, I think that's what makes company already out of the pack. And I guess the last one would be, talk to your customer. Every day, every day. That's how,
know what they need,
yeah,
what they
what they're
struggle with,
frustrated
what they
about, what their
need.
problems are. Yeah. Being frustrated as a customer myself made me become an entrepreneur. So
Okay.
if you just have a good idea, maybe that's going to work. But if you don't know what people are doing and experiencing in front of your product or service,
Yeah.
again, it's going to be harder. So yeah, I
Yeah.
would say ego, people, dedication, speed, and talking to your
Cool.
customer.
I hope people took notes. Um, Thank you very much for sharing all your journey. It's very insightful for founders or future founders or former founders. We
I
have
hope.
a bit of everything about the transitions. I like also your point about ego, about time and money. So thank you very much for sharing. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Carmen, for having me. I enjoy our conversation, and I enjoy your questions.
I'm glad. Thank you. Bye bye.